Good morning and welcome to Jasiri. It's another Thursday of big conversations and deeper insights into the stories that shape our world. Today we begin with a story that's all about health, hope and human capital. How do we drive sustainable investments, innovation and stronger health systems for Nigeria? We'll be speaking with Professor Leila Ben Amor, Head of Section for Human Development at the EU Delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS, about how partnership could help transform access to quality healthcare across the country. And then we turn to a story we've covered since it broke. It connects the UK and Africa. Do you remember the British boy who sued his parents for putting him in a boarding school in Ghana? Yep. A UK court has ruled in the matter. News Central senior international correspondent has the latest on the story that could set a precedent in these matters. It's a case that touches on the questions of identity, justice, and belonging in an increasingly global world. So from global international cooperation to personal stories with global resonance, that's all on the table this morning on Jasiri, where we connect the dots between people, policy, and purpose.
But up first on our agenda is health, hope, and human capital. In a country where millions still struggle to access quality health care, every investment counts, not just in money, but in partnerships, innovation, and trust. This week, global and local leaders did just that, exploring new ways to strengthen Nigeria's health system and ensure that no one is left behind. From major funding agreements to private sector collaborations, this marks an important step in the ongoing partnership between the European Union and Nigeria, focused on transforming the how healthcare is delivered and financed. Joining us now to unpack what all this means for Nigeria's future is Professor Leila Ben Amor, Head of Section for Human Development at the European Union Delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS. Professor Amor, welcome to Jasiri.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and a very good morning to all.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to have you on the show. We know that Nigeria's healthcare has a lot of investment priorities, but we want to start with the big picture. Why is the EU interested in investing in Nigeria's healthcare in the first place?
Yes, thank you for the question. Indeed, we have been supporting Nigeria for long on health. Through local projects as well as through contributions to large funds, global funds. But we have to step back a little bit. This is all something that we designed with the African Union post-COVID. And so the idea was that we should never have to face this kind of thing that happened again. And so the African Union and the European Union decided to collaborate, join forces, and trying to gain autonomy in their own continent. So the idea is really now, it's the next stage of collaborations, if you will. We cannot have, good health is the cornerstone of any development. Human development, human capital needs, if you want to have a strong, robust economy, you need to have a strong, resilient, well-educated, in good health population. And so the idea was coming from there, and then we decided to do it a bit different with the African Union and to focus on how to generate or help strengthen the existing ecosystems in Africa to ensure that healthcare is sustainable and strong locally, starting with manufacturing healthcare products, vaccines, medicines locally as well. So this is really how it happened. We have been investing for long in health. It's one of our major, let's say, sectors where we have invested throughout the world because we believe that universal health, good health is a right. Now, how to do it differently is the whole story that we started last week.
All right, so it's very good. I think a lot of people will be excited to hear that we're looking at also making sure that vaccines are produced here in Nigeria and across the continent. And one thing we know is that collaboration is key to any major reform. So how can we ensure that these investments directly strengthen Nigeria's local health institutions rather than just being sort of stopgap measures or funding for short-term projects. We want this to be sustainable and as long-term to have as much impact as possible. How do we ensure that happens?
So this is one of the projects we launched last week as well. The whole idea is to build collaboration. The Minister Ali Pate has a strong plan for involving primary health care throughout Nigeria and doing like what they call a sector-wide approach. And we have been working with government to design and to identify the best way to collaborate together. On these particular programs we launched last week, the idea is to really work with government in the design, but also work with all health institutions we have identified to build up collaborations, to strengthen their capacity in implementing or regulating the sector, as well as to start engaging with private sector on health, so that we can build it together in a much more sustainable way. It's just the start. I mean, we have been working very many years on health, but this angle is new, and what we hope to do is launch into long-term robust collaboration, starting to build good relationship with local institutions. And we have been engaging with NIPRIT. We have been engaging with NABEP in the coming years, but we'll also be looking at working on research, for instance, on medical research, on AI research, on manufacturing of products, health products related, everything research related. We would like to work with universities as well. And of course, we must not forget private sector. It's not only local institutions, it's local institutions and the private sector. We need to find a way to do it together differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so we understand that some major agreements are being signed, Prof. Could you walk us through what they are about and the kind of impacts that they'll have on Nigeria's health sector?
Yes, so last week we signed with Nigerian government the MAV agreements. MAV stands for Manufacture of Vaccines and Other Health Products and Health Technologies. So this one is part of an African-wide program that we designed with African Union. And in Nigeria, the idea is to focus more on capacity building for research and production, working through partners and with local institutions. And we aim at having a few very robust deliverables, looking at some diseases, looking at some products. We also want to have a look at how the supply chain is organized and work together with Nigeria so they ensure that there's a more robust system. So that's the first one that we signed with government, and it's going to start now. We have also signed an agreement with the WAHU. WAHU is the West African Health Organization, and so it's a regional project, an ECOWAS project, that is going to look at how to strengthen sexual and reproductive health and rights in the ECOWAS region. It's really led by WAHU. We are supporting it as a Team Europe with our member states. The member states that have joined forces with us in that endeavor. And so this is more an ECOWAS wide program. It should be very important in Nigeria as well, helping strengthening the family planning and access to different solutions and medication for better health, for women, for mothers, for children.
Thank you.
The last one was not signed with us. It was we witnessed the signature of a partnership between Bayer and Nigerian government, so they are better placed to speak of it.
Fantastic.
Professor, the private sector is often described as a key player in transforming healthcare generally. And how does the partnership between Nigeria and the EU bring more businesses and innovators, especially, into the conversation?
So as you know, I am not here I'm not teaching you anything new or saying anything new. Nigeria has brilliant businesses and innovators already. There are many players already in the health private sector and ecosystem. What we want to do is partner with the Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Health Value Chain, PVAC, which has been engaging with the private sector both across the world and especially in Europe and Nigeria, private sector, to identify the gaps, the skill gaps, the financial gaps, what is needed to start manufacturing at another level. So what we can provide and what we will provide, we have already started providing, is support to the financing of private sector. You have the ideas, you have the companies, you have the innovators. So one of the gaps that have been identified is that very often there is not enough investment, or the banks are reluctant to lend money to businesses, startups. So that's what we're working on with government, trying to identify the best financial instruments to provide guarantees to help this private sector help itself and develop its activities in Nigeria. This is a very important part of what we're trying to do. It's part of our Global Gateway strategy. So we're looking at how to do investments together with Nigeria. Under this one, it's we have already very promising companies lined up. Of course, it's hush-hush because it's not been yet decided. And we are bringing in our European investment banks as well as other banks working with Nigerian institutions. So that's just the beginning of everything. We have, PVAC has identified very promising companies, and we are aiming at working hand in hand with the private sector and government on that. It is a very exciting project that we're starting, and we hope to have very good results indeed starting from next year. There are many startups, Nigerian startups, that came up with brilliant ideas. There are many European companies that are looking at coming to Nigeria to do business and create jobs in that sector as well. So we hope to have indeed very good results shortly.
So, Professor, talking about government, Nigeria's current health policies focused on achieving universal health care, and you've often emphasized human development as central to the EU's mission. What's the plan for specifically addressing the health needs of women, of girls, and of young people, especially in the rural or underserved areas?
So, on this, we've been working with governments hand in hand, so not only EU, but all the donors and technical partners. So the minister has a very strong plan to develop primary health care. And we have been trying to align all our efforts and to reach the same goals. In this particular instance, for instance, we have a program that we call SAHA, which is focusing on the health care for adolescents, especially girls. So we're working through all the primary healthcare centers in in the 3 states we're looking at doing this project to provide and help government provide access to health to the most underserved populations, of course, women. We have another program on maternal health that is regional, that is looking at the problem of bleeding at birth. There are very useful, simple medicine that can help and save lives in numbers, and that's a project we have started implementing in West Africa. It's a medicine that can be manufactured locally. They are already looking at how to develop its manufacturing. And so that's the kind of things we do. But we just support government and try to bring what help we can. But the main actor here is government. Primary health care should be strong, and basic access to basic services such as that should be scaled up. And it's a very big endeavor in Nigeria, given the size of the population and the difficulty to reach some of its population, especially the rural population. It's a challenge. I think we have been making good progress. There is a lot more to do, of course. And Nigeria, we stand with Nigeria and its efforts in that respect. We have done that so for many years, and we will continue to do so.
All right, Professor Leila, before we let you go, just one final question. How will all of this translate into the real benefits for Nigerians, especially women and young people? How will we be able to measure success, and what specific outcomes or metrics should we look out for, excuse me, in the coming months and years to gauge the real impact?
So that's a very good question, but that's a project-based question. Let's say that if we have projects that have indicators, deliverables, and we are hoping to reach them. The question here is, what's the difference? What difference are we going to make? So in the private sector angle, we hope to see more products manufactured locally and brought to the population. Basic medication, primary, first entry medication that we need. So if we manufacture more and the price is low, this is going to be of great benefit to the population, because they will have more affordable medication, medicine, and other health products reaching them. But that is not going to be measured in the next year. What can be measured is the access on the other type of project that we do, is how many people have more access to services, how many people or people's lives are improved. I think we can measure differences, and that's the whole sector-wide approach of government, trying to deliver to its most needed, the most vulnerable populations. Now, what is the difference in everyday lives? If you have more manufacturing, then you have more manufacturing jobs, and it's important also to create jobs. So creating jobs, giving access to more affordable medication, giving access to basic services, that's what we're looking at. It's long-term, but we do hope to have results in at least 2 years' time period, because we just are starting on this. Yes.
Professor Leila Ben Amor, thank you very much for joining us this morning and sharing all your wealth of knowledge with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a very good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I know many Nigerians worry about the state of the country's healthcare sector, and any investment that would help bring progress is always welcome. We look forward to seeing the impact in the lives of the people. And when we come back, we'll look into the issue of rising incidents of jungle justice in Benue State. Please stay with us.
And welcome back to Jasiri, where bold conversations make the day every weekday. There is one story that caught our eye from the numerous stories that our correspondents cover across Nigeria. Cases of mob justice, or as it is often called in Nigeria, jungle justice, are on the rise in Benue State. In moments of anger and frustration, crowds are taking the law into their own hands, delivering what they see as instant justice to suspected criminals. But while many say it's born out of a loss of trust in the system, human rights activists warn it's a dangerous path, one that erodes the rule of law and risks punishing the innocent. Security agencies, on their part, insist that those behind such acts will be brought to justice. News Central's Showese Anyo takes us into the heart of the issue.
In different parts of Benue State, more suspects are being publicly humiliated, beaten, or even killed without trial, as mob justice gains worrying traction.
The youth are angry. There is no job in Makurdi. Even when they stole this bike from you, you will not be happy.
That is the reason why guys are provoked. Instead of inviting security for a crime like stealing, they will just waste your life.
Some residents admit they understand public anger over rising crime, but insist no one deserves to die without a fair hearing.
The snatching of bags is rampant now due to the hardship some youth are passing through because of unemployment and so on. Taking someone's life is not the option.
Even though I'm a victim of this, I will never encourage jungle justice, as this has led to many loss of innocent souls.
I think it's just ignorance on the part of people who do that, because it's, like I said, it's totally against the law to take the life of another person.
Others warn that innocent people can easily fall victim to false allegations or panic-filled reactions from crowds.
If we continue with mob actions, it only means that you are endangered and I am endangered. It is very, very unfair. And then it goes beyond that. Everybody lives in perpetual fear. Because you just need one person to shout, thief. You are gone.
The paramount duty of government is the protection, the security of life and property of the people. Once the government does that, you know, this accumulated provocation we see around the people will be suppressed. This mistrust will be suppressed.
The Benue State Police Command has condemned the act, stating that sensitization efforts are ongoing and anyone found guilty will face the full weight of the law.
This jungle justice issue has been addressed several times by the Commissioner. In fact, there's a press release to that effect concerning jungle justice. I don't know why the people refuse to let go or listen. Follow proper authority. Go to the nearest police station, report if you find or see a suspect or someone that is suspicious. Report to the nearest police station.
With rising poverty, insecurity, and growing mistrust in law enforcement, stakeholders warn that jungle justice could further destabilize communities if not urgently addressed. In Benue, for News Central, Siwisi, Anya.
Those were actual pictures of people being burnt alive in parts of Benue because of the situation of jungle justice. And it felt like the issue around jungle justice had gone down a bit, but obviously it has not. And for me, I always remember the Alu 4. The Alu 4 is what comes to mind every time a conversation about jungle justice comes about. And as the analyst said, it is so easy to just say, "Ole, thief." And Nigerians will hear, "Go." They will not hear, "Come." But we can also talk about it without the acceptance and the acknowledgement that it is happening because of a lack of trust in the policing system and in the legal system.
Is it only a lack of trust? Is it really only a lack of trust?
It can be more.
When you have a system, because when you say, there's a difference. Okay, I don't trust the system, but why don't I trust the system? When justice is slow to be delivered or not delivered at all, delayed justice
is denied.
Is denied. So when people feel that the proceedings are too complex, they are too expensive, it leads to a desire for instant justice. And it erodes the confidence in the system and also in the society that, hey, this person or this person could or could not be guilty. Like you mentioned, the Alu 4, it's the craziest, instance of mob justice that I have ever heard about, because the guys turned out to be innocent. And you never know who is innocent in all of this. Justice can never be in the hands of the mob.
It can never be, because sometimes it's not just about the act of jungle justice. The act in itself turns us back into animals.
It makes us depravity about it.
Yeah, there's a depravity about it. It's like we're going back to our cave age, cave times where there was no order in the society. What is the need for government?
But what
is to provide some kind of, some level of justice that you can put in a good context. But when anybody across the road can just met out justice as they deem fit, the society is going to get into a situation of anarchy.
Implosion.
I think the
And
society...
that's dangerous.
But, sorry, do you know what it takes for you to put a tire on somebody?
Somebody and pour petrol.
Pour petrol on them or gasoline, light a match, strike it, and watch them burn.
Oh, but they do that all the time. I mean, if you... there was a time I was doing a report, and I had to speak to cattle riders, and it became, you know, that came up, and it became normal for them. That if somebody steals, or actually, I was riding past one that was being thrown stones. He was being, they throw a stone. They say a thief. They said, what did he steal that would warrant? They say, no, it's not the first time he's doing it, you know. And once people begin to gather like that. So my own question is, can we really rid ourselves of mob justice in... It goes on whether we like it or not. Yeah. Probably in smaller communities, in smaller places. But to answer your questions, people can burn tire on somebody without batting an eyelid. And they believe it's...
But that is
you know how we usually say
where the problem is.
Let me scare all of us. Hold on. Because as he said, it could be anybody. I could be walking down the street. And they say, oh, meanwhile, I might be looking like the person they're looking for.
All right, so I get
That's my life gone.
You know how people say... We talk about rapists and pedophiles on this table on Jasiri, and you say it can't happen to me, may it not happen to me. And it happens to you that your child has been, your 3-year-old or 2-year-old has been raped by a 60-year-old man, and you come out, and that anger, do you know it takes you to start calling this person a rapist? People can come out of anywhere and will come out. But and before you know it, they beat, they throw stones, so
Catherine,
do we need to, what is that thing that we need to check for us not to? Are we even ready?
It never deters crime.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Never.
Jungle justice, mob justice has never deterred crime.
People have never been afraid of what the mob is going to do.
They will burn me, let me not steal. They still carry on and steal. So deterrence and retaliation go hand in hand. You see, mob justice is often seen by the perpetrators of mob justice as a necessary act to deter the crime, but it does not deter the crime. So, there's, like you said, there's a cultural acceptance of that immediate retaliation. But then, Tolu is talking about identity-based targeting. You are moving down the street, you do not know anything, and somebody just shouts, and then you're targeted. There is no grassroots education of, of the law, of what is cultural, of the options. Nobody goes to the grassroots, talks to people and says, you know what? And we even have religious, yesterday we were talking about religious, sensitization. I do not know how we, our religious influencers actually influence the people when it comes to extremes like jungle justice. And that we must accept that we're in a society where we should be fighting to have the wheels of justice, that is the law, spin faster and more effective for our people.
Unfortunately, I'm even thinking that I am an advocate for community policing. Because, in fairness to the security agencies, sometimes they don't have enough manpower.
No.
Do you know there was a time in my life that almost at every junction, you would see a policeman. You know that there's law enforcement agents all around.
But now when you see policemen,
nowadays, I hardly would see police in communities. I would see policemen on the roads. I would see them at checkpoints.
But they have
the streets, as in all those little places, that there must be some kind of presence, some semblance of order.
So doesn't the vigilante or don't the vigilantes?
That's why I don't like vigilante.
Jungle justice.
Why I don't like vigilante?
Judicial killings.
Yes, it's because sometimes they overdo.
And you think the police doesn't overdo?
These vigilantes come into the estate, and I don't even know from where. If we did not raise, in fact, it was my partner that woke up at night. My son called them that somebody was outside our gate and they had gathered the boy. So they came out of the house. They just found out that it was just a young boy. You know, all this romance, skimming around the estate, loloxing with his babe. They were just around about 12, and they had gathered the boy, sent the girl into a house, because I think she's somebody's nanny, and kept the boy, brought him to the end of the street where it was a close. My MIA street is a close. And they started beating him.
For what?
If they had not come out, we escalated the matter quickly.
Immediately.
That we now called the estate security, all these things I'm telling you, Kathleen, if it did not happen that it came out at that time,
he could have died.
And Olasimi came out, that boy would have died. You need to come and say,
so the vigilantes are not any better.
They are not any better.
Situations. They are not. So
and I'm afraid that we cannot keep arming everybody. That's why when they were saying that who should carry guns, that we kicked against it. FRSC or road safety. I'm like,
road safety. Yeah.
More people with arms. That is dangerous for us as a country.
I have a serious issue with our policymakers and how or not how we hold them accountable. Nigeria does not have a single dedicated federal law against mob. I do not know what has happened so far with those who perpetrated the Alu 4, mob justice.
The families say they never got justice.
They never got justice from somebody who was seeking jungle justice on people who
lied against people that led to their loss of life.
Exactly. So the practice of mob justice is unequivocally illegal in Nigeria, but there's no tenet that says
yes, there's a law.
We keep referring to our constitution, 1999 constitution and other frameworks, but there's no singular framework that says, you see this particular thing you're doing, if you do it, here's what is going to happen.
So it should not just be that the constitution speaks against illegally or unlawfully killing someone. If you're part of a crowd that perpetrates jungle justice, this is your punishment. If you're the person who cries wolf and there's no wolf and it leads to jungle justice and leads to somebody's death, this is your responsibility. And I think that's a point that has to be made, because we often look at the crowd. And let me tell you, it's a situation because there's the crowd mentality. There's a jungle justice crowd mentality. And those who have studied it said that it becomes easier for us to lose our humanity when we are part of a larger crowd. So that person who from somewhere throws the first stone, that person unleashes something. Because everyone acts like a mob. They just sway and move together. And all of them believe that they don't have individual responsibility.
It makes it like
it was what the mob wanted. I was part of the mob. People have also spoken about the fact that if I speak up and say, stop, don't do this, they'll turn on me and say, you're part of it. You too, why would you be speaking for thief? Why would you be speaking for so-and-so? You two are part of it. You now get roped into it. It's something
once you're
really
part of a mob, it takes on the faceless identity. Everybody just starts to become like one. That animal instinct comes out. And if you're not even careful, you might not even know where it started from.
Exactly. Usually they say the mob has the power. In Rome, in those years, many years ago, the power was with the mob. And it was easy for the mob to decide what's going to happen, especially in the arenas many years ago. Like, okay, so let's go on a break now. Up next on Jasiri, imagine being told you can't go back home, not because you don't want to, but because a court says it's for your own good. That's the reality for one British teen now in Ghana who's at the center of a complex legal and emotional battle. We'll tell you why right after the break.
Now, our next discussion raises tough questions about identity, family, and justice in a global age. It's one we followed when it first broke, and now we have the latest update. A UK High Court has ruled that a British-born teenager who has spent much of his life in England must now remain in Ghana in boarding school until he completes his schooling. The decision came amid concerns by his parents about his behavior in London and fears over gang influences. What does this case tell us about parental responsibility, cross-border family dynamics, and a young person's right to choose their future? And how do rights, safety, and belonging balance out when two countries, two cultures, and two homes are involved? Let's dig into all of this, the facts, the emotions, and the wider implications with News Central's senior international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good morning, and it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Let's get it in.
So, Afia, first, for context, could you walk us through the central facts of this case for those many who have missed it from the first time round, and for those who need a refresher on the details? How exactly did a 14-year-old end up taking his parents to court?
Absolutely. So let me give you the backstory. So this is a 14-year-old boy who's simply known as S. He's a British-born, 14 years old, with Ghanaian and British nationality. So he was taken to Ghana on holiday under the premise of visiting a sick relative. We'll go to Ghana, visit the sick relative, stay for a couple of weeks, and then come back home. But when he arrived, he discovered he'd been enrolled in a boarding school, and then his parents returned to the United Kingdom without him. So he contested the move. He contacted the British consulate in Ghana. He got legal representation, and he began court proceedings to be brought back to the United Kingdom. So a high court ruled in early 2025, initially decided that the parents' actions were within their parental responsibility and allowed the boy to remain in Ghana, concluding that they had made the move, or made that move, done what they did, because of genuine safety reasons. Now, the Court of Appeal in June 2025 found that that earlier judgment confused key welfare reasoning, and therefore they allowed an appeal. They ordered a fresh hearing in the High Court, but was not given sufficient weight to S's, that's the child's views and welfare. Then we had the latest ruling that the case was remitted for a rehearing, and the High Court ruled, that was the High Court ruling that was handed down most recently. The High Court has ruled that the boy must remain in Ghana for now until his GCSEs are completed, and because of those welfare and safety grounds. This latest judgment that we've had has emphasised the risks of staying in the UK for child S and the benefits of education in Ghana, and of course that continuity, which would then facilitate a managed return. So there has been a bit of High Court back and forth, some appeals on this, but the latest ruling that we have had is that child S must stay in Ghana to complete his GCSEs, his or her GCSEs, and then have a phased and managed return to the UK if that's what they want, whilst the GCSEs have been completed.
I wish you could have seen the expression on the ladies' faces as you were running through how he took them to court. It was first one trial, then there was an appeal, but now we have the High Court judgment from Tuesday. And, you know, the court said the move was in the boy's best. Wait. The High Court said that the judgment and the move was in the boy's best interest because of concerns about gang culture in the UK. Afia, how much of an issue is this? And were the parents' fears valid? Because if you remember, the parents had seen text messages. They said he was becoming secretive and dishonest. The mother had found him hiding a kitchen knife as well. There was, I think, money he could not explain where he got it from. So there are a whole bunch of things that these African-born parents saw and said, this one, and they tricked him. You said on the premise, let's use the word, they tricked him to Ghana. So are the parents' fears valid? And I'd say that always remembering Damilola Damilola Taylor, I believe, and a number of other situations we've seen in recent times. So Afia, tell us about that.
Look, I do think that the parents' fears are valid because there is a lot of knife crime, especially, I'm actually not going to say especially in London, because recently, actually, we've had some research that's come out that said, well, knife crime is actually dropping here in the capital. It's rising in suburban areas. And it does tend to be a problem amongst younger men. And this isn't just completely just for black boys, it is across the board, but particularly young men. And there's a lot of different issues at play. You mentioned Damilola Taylor, the 10-year-old boy who was stabbed in the stairwell in South London. Now, that was a very, very tragic case. Damilola Taylor was a completely innocent boy who was caught up in a fight. Someone else perpetrated this act against them. Why that person decided that they needed to do that is far beyond anyone's understanding. An absolutely tragic case, but one that actually changed a neighborhood. But then when we look at the other parts of knife crime, you have things like county lines gangs, and those gangs tend to run drugs, bringing them in from the suburbs into the city and vice versa. And they, again, encourage the young people who are the runners for drugs, because often they won't be caught, and they carry knives as well. And then there's young people who feel that they have to carry knives to protect themselves. It's such a multi-layered problem. The problem of young boys, especially, and like I said, it's not just limited to black boys, carrying these knives. If the parents found knives, money, the boy is being secretive, this all points to someone who's been caught up, perhaps in a gang, perhaps in a county lines gang, perhaps someone who feels that they need to protect themselves. So I think these welfare concerns are absolutely valid, because you don't want your child to turn out to be the next statistic. They perhaps thought that they were saving his life. And I would ultimately believe that if that is the course that they needed to take to be able to do that, to stop this young boy from becoming a statistic, then I feel that they felt that they were doing that in the best way that they know possible. Looking at the evidence that is being presented, looking at what they found, it points to someone who is getting involved in a life that could potentially end theirs.
And let me just, I was talking to somebody who's in the UK yesterday, was taking their kids to lesson. Next thing he tells me, the police are asking questions of why there had been a stabbing that morning. And they were asking to see if anybody was a witness.
A witness at that time. Anyway.
I mean, if you look at, sorry to interrupt, if you look at what happens on the train over the weekend, the train that was going into Huntingdon Station, a London-bound train, we had that absolutely terrifying incident. We had a 32-year-old, British-born, national, a black guy who stabbed 10 people on a train. He'd actually stabbed somebody else in a barbershop earlier on that day. Now, we don't know the reasons behind this. It's not being treated as an act of terrorism. But if you look at what happened on that train, it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. It's slightly different. This is an older man. We don't know if there was some mental health issues at play. But the key thing is this: a knife was involved in that attack. And so it's very scary if you have someone who is in charge, who has this weaponry. We just don't know what can happen. So if we can save our children from this, isn't that a responsibility to do that?
It is. Afia, you know, I'm totally fair. So I almost clap for that judge. I say thank you, because this will indeed set a precedent for a lot of other parents about the upkeep of their children. But while the judge did agree that, yes, he was strict, she concluded that he should remain living in Ghana, with the aim of setting out a roadmap and taking the necessary steps for him to return to the UK after completing his GCSEs. So, you know, when you're going to look at it in a timeline, what number of years are we looking at? Because if someone is going to redress or change a behavior, it takes, you know, some time that you need to be able to imbibe some of the new things that they want you to learn. So from 14-year-old, how many years are we looking at before he gets his GCSE?
And that's a good question. So if he's 14 years old, he's probably starting his GCSEs this year and into next year. So it could be a couple of years before he's finished those particular exams. And then if we think about the transition period for him to come back to the United Kingdom, that's the thing, is that he might complete those GCSEs and then decide that perhaps he doesn't want to come back to the United Kingdom. I think there potentially is an element or a thought that if he buckles down, if he does the work for the next couple of years, perhaps taking him to around the age of 16, whatever he's learned and experienced at boarding school in Ghana might have changed his mind about what he was involved in back in the UK. And we don't know what that is, but we have an idea. But I think the thinking is that if in a couple of years' time, when he's finished his GCSEs around the age of 16, he himself might have thought to himself, actually, what I've experienced in the past couple of years was hard, but there were reasons behind it. And I am still here. I've hopefully got some qualifications. Let me see what I can do from now. Let me see if perhaps I will stay in Ghana, complete my A-levels or a diploma and go off to university. Or I'll go back to the United Kingdom with a different frame of mind, perhaps move away from the area, think of what else I can do in my life. So I think it's about the judge perhaps giving the boy, it's not necessarily about the parents. We can talk about the parents and the action that they did, but at the heart of this is this boy. So I think it's about giving him a couple of years to get his head down, to knuckle down, to get his GCSEs and see if he has changed his mind about what happened, see if he can see some positives in it. And I think that's kind of the thinking around giving him this couple of years to complete his GCSEs.
Right. Afia, ladies, parents are going through a lot.
We're going through it.
Parents are going through a lot, especially African parents who are trying to give their children better by leaving countries that already give them so many gaps in terms of raising their children, and you take them to other countries where there's this two worlds apart cultural dissonance, where they're trying to raise these children and discipline them. But how do you balance parental fears for safety with a teenager's rights and wishes? It is true that young people do have rights. We want to raise them better than we were raised. You know, times change. We understand that. There's also the question of voice. How much say should a teenager have in decisions like this, especially when a parent believes they are at risk? You're still a child anyway. So,
and they can't see. They can't see what is ahead of them.
So how do you balance that?
I mean, it's really difficult. As a mum of a teen, and I've got a teenage girl rather than a teenage boy, and we know the problems are different when it comes to our boys and our girls. But look, it's really, really difficult, isn't it? Because what we want to do is give our children the best start in life, perhaps better than what we had, or perhaps as good as what we had. And it's really, really difficult to be able to do that. You're balancing a teen's right to privacy, their right to express themselves, their right to have some autonomy over their lives, their right to have some agency. But also we want to keep them alive. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep them on the right path that we have been set on, or we'd like to think that we were set on or went on to get to where we are today. And so it's all about doing that in the best way possible. And, you know, you do have lots and lots of parents, and I think probably looking at my parents' generation, where you would perhaps send your child to America, send their child to the United Kingdom, perhaps with a relative who was there, and you would stay back home and you'd hope that they would have the best start, or vice versa. You would go ahead of them, leave your children in Ghana and send for them afterwards. I think now there's perhaps less of that, but especially in the diaspora community here in the United Kingdom that I can speak of, is that when we were growing up, you know, you often heard of stories where you had children who were naughty, who were bad, and got sent back to Ghana, got sent back home to be disciplined. And it was kind of used as a kind of scary bedtime story. You know, if you don't behave, we'll send you back to Ghana. The problem is now, is where we are in 2025. You best believe that a lot of these teens would rather be in Ghana than they would here. Because, you know, the UK that we see in 2025 is not necessarily the UK we had in 1985 or 1995. Absolutely. It is not this West is best utopia that it has been sold. Absolutely not. And so that threat of you'll be sent back to Ghana, I mean, if I said it to my child today, she'd be like, excellent work, mum, let's go. You know, it's not a threat to her at all. She's living her best life. And so it's very hard to sort of balance that, isn't it? Giving your teen autonomy, giving them agency, giving them freedom, but keeping them on the right track, keeping them connected with home, with where they're from, keeping them connected with the diaspora communities, deciding what to eat for dinner every night. It's a lot of work.
She had to go in. No, you had to go there. I love you for that. You had to go there.
So true.
While I like where this is going, this precedence in this ruling, what do you think it signals for other diasporan families or families with dual ties across countries? What implication does it have for child welfare, cross-border legal systems, and migration policy? Because it's something really interesting. The UK then and now are two different times.
Same with the US.
Yeah, even the US.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about, let's talk about maybe the legal implications and the implications for migration. This ruling highlights, or I really feel that highlights, the need for better international cooperation, should that be between consular, social services and education, to manage families that are split up across borders, manage reintegration and safeguarding. I think that's really, really important. You have to have really clear pathways about a child's safety and their education and managing transiting across borders. I think that's really, really important. I mean, I am someone who has educated my child on the continent of Africa for a year. I was there with her. I didn't send her back, and I was there with her, and she had an incredible time. But I remember when we were coming back into the UK education system, it was applying for school all over again. And I thought that was just such, a waste of time, money, resources, administration. So I definitely feel like when it comes to those policies, you need to have better policies in place and lots more, to coin a phrase, joined up thinking. I think when it comes to families and diasporan families and what we feel we can do to keep our children on the straight and narrow, I think a lot of us are probably realizing, like I said earlier on, that perhaps, the UK, the US, wherever, it's not always best. We've had this West is best mentality for so long. It's something that's been ingrained. It's something that's caused such a huge brain drain from Ghana, Nigeria, so many countries. And we've settled here, and our families have settled here. And whilst I completely understand why my parents did it, I find myself looking the other way and thinking, well, if I could choose where to bring up my child, would it be in London? I'm not entirely sure. And a lot of diaspora families are feeling that now, that the United Kingdom or the US or wherever they are based is not the best place for their children, because you are losing your connection to culture, you're losing your connection to home, and that has huge ripple effects throughout your life. Sense of belonging, identity. If you don't know where you've come from, how do you know where you're going? Along with, you cannot be what you do not see. The lack of role modeling, the lack of aspirational characters, all these things really play a huge part in how our children see themselves when they're growing up. And I think if you're not connected to who you are deep down inside, the ripple effects that has across your whole life are huge, and they are underestimated. Yeah. They are vastly underestimated. So I think you have diasporan families absolutely looking at the places they came from to be the best places for their children, but it's how you manage that. Is it just sending somebody back or tricking them into going back home and locking them up in a boarding school? Whilst we understand why the parents did that, is that the best way? Perhaps not. Or perhaps, I never want to judge another parent's decision, because, like I said, I know how difficult it is.
Wow.
I wanted us to talk after, but I think we'll talk about this tomorrow. We can't. Afia, thank you so much, our senior international correspondent there, Afia Hagen. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you on our screens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the conversation we should have again. We have to go. But today's conversations remind us that progress isn't just about policies or court rulings. It's about people, from global health investments that could save lives to a teenager caught between two worlds and two systems. The thread is clear. Decisions made in boardrooms and courtrooms ripple through real lives. As Nigeria strengthened its partnership to build a healthier future, and as families around the world navigate what's best for their children, one thing remains constant: the need for empathy, accountability, and understanding. Because guess what? In the end, every system we build and every law we uphold should serve the same goal: giving people the chance to live with dignity, opportunity, and choice. It's a wrap on today's show. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.